பேக்ரவுண்ட் கூட மாத்திக்கல மாட்டேன்.
ஆமா. கூகுள் மீட். இது ஏதோ ஒரு கீ இருக்கும்.
சரி. தேங்க்யூ.
Good morning. Good morning to all. I welcome all creators of the world with grace. Welcome you all back for the short-term course in climate change, impact on sustainable development, jointly organized by Research and Development Cell, Department of Botany, Kongunadu Arts and Science College, Dr. M. Aruchami Research Foundation, and Indian Science Congress Association, Untitled Chapter. The wearer of smiles and the bearer of a kindly disposition needs no introduction, but is welcome anywhere. I now invite Dr. K. Soundararajan Sir, Assistant Professor in Botany Department, Kongunadu Arts and Science College, Coimbatore, to welcome the gathering and to introduce the speaker. Please, sir.
Yes, madam. A very good morning to everyone present here. I am extremely honored to have the chance to address you in this prestigious moment. On behalf of Department of Botany, Kongunadu Arts and Science College, I would like to take this opportunity to express my sincere thanks to our most respected Secretary and Director, Dr. C.A. Vasugi Madam, and beloved Principal, Dr. M. Lakshmasamy Sir, for giving permission to conduct this short-term course in climate change, impact on sustainable development. A warm welcome to you all. A hearty welcome to our respected Dean, R&D, Dr. S. Valsamy Sir, Dean Academics, Dr. S.R. Madan Sankar Sir, and Dean Computer Science, Dr. N. Nagarajan Sir. On this occasion, we have with us the esteemed presence of today's resource person, Dr. P. Thangavel Sir, Assistant Professor, Department of Environmental Science, Periyar University, Salem, who spared time from his busiest schedule to grace this occasion. A hearty welcome to you, sir. I would like to extend my warm welcome to the HOD, Department of Botany, Dr. K. Tenmuli Madam, Organizing Secretary of this event, Dr. K. Karthikeya Madam, Coordinators, Dr. R. Rekha Madam and Dr. Parveen Madam, and faculty members of Department of Botany and other departments of KSC. I am very happy to welcome all the participants from our institution and other institutions. Thank you very much for your enthusiastic participation in this webinar. I am very pleased to introduce Dr. P. Thangavel Sir. He is currently serving as an Assistant Professor, Department of Environmental Science, Periyar University, Salem. He has completed his BSc, MSc, and MPhil degrees in Zoology and PhD degree in Environmental Science from Bharatiyar University, Coimbatore. He also obtained Diploma in Industrial Pollution Control from Annamalai University. His areas of research interest are soil ecology, phytoremediation, environmental impact assessment, and biofortification. After his doctoral degree, he continues his research as research associate at Bharatiyar University, visiting scientist at United States Department of Agriculture Forest Service, USA, postal research associate at School of Environmental Science and Engineering, Sun Yat-sen University, China. Later, he joined as guest lecturer at Department of Environmental Science, Periyar University, Salem. He has visited several countries for scientific purposes like Harvard University, University of New Hampshire, State University of New York, and Binghamton University in USA, University of Gulf, Canada, Sun Yat-sen University, China, Kestrat University, Thailand, Kangwon National University, South Korea, and Matech University, and also University of Peso, Slovakia. Dr. Thangavel sir has published more than 40 research articles in peer-reviewed international journals, 11 book chapters, and edited 6 books. He also presented his research findings in various national and international conferences, symposia, and participated in 15 training and soft skills development programs. He has also organized 25 academic events. He has a total cumulative impact factor of 67 and 1,239 citations with H index 15 and I-10 index 25. Dr. Thangavel sir completed 3 major funded projects about rupees 1.6 crore from TANSI Research Grant, Government of Tamil Nadu, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, and DST SERB Core Research Grant. He is the member in American Society of Plant Biologists, Ecological Society of America, International Phytotechnology Society, Phytoremediation Electronic News Group Network, University of Florida, and International Serpentine Ecology Society USA, Indian Network for Soil Contamination Research, International Society of Environmental Botanists, and Indian Science Caucus Association, Kolkata. In addition to member in various academic and administrative boards of Periyar University and Government of Tamil Nadu. He is also serving as an editorial board member in various international journals. I express my gratitude to Dr. Thangavel sir for accepting our invitation and gracing this event. Today, he is going to deliver his lecture on Consequences of Climate Change on Environment, an overview. Once again, I cordially welcome you all to the short-term course in Climate Change Impact on Sustainable Development. Thank you all for your constant support.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Professor in the Department of Environmental Science from Periyar University, Salem, to deliver his talk on the topic Consequences of Climate Change on Environment, an overview. Please, sir.
Sir, kindly unmute your audio, sir.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Yes. Is it audible, madam, now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you're audible, sir.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Good morning to honorable presence here. And first of all, I would like to thank the secretary and other administrative authorities and my dear friend Dr. Palsoni sir, Dean, for research in your college, and for giving me an opportunity to share my views on what are the consequences of climate change on environment. And due to the time constraint, I am not go to much about those things, and especially and the climate change consequences from its whatever it is, whether it is El Nino or for the La Nina impact on water scarcity, food security, and species extinction or biodiversity impacts on biodiversity resources, health aspects, and migration or civil wars or migration, or so many issues are there. And recently for the global swarming, that is the mass attack of locusts, that is global swarming. And I would like to cover some of the aspects here. Due to time constraint, we are not able to cover the whole thing, and probably I would like to cover for what are the consequences, especially on the habitat loss and species extinction, and including water security and food security, some of the issues, and why we have to pay more attention on biodiversity, or because it directly related to the ecosystem supporting systems, as so many beneficial things like the supporting systems. It's provisioning aspects, or regulating, or cultural aspects. So it's also an integrated socio-ecological systems for those biodiversity resources, especially in ecosystem, and several functions: nutrient flow, water flow, productivity, pollution, pollination, and habitat things, and for several ecosystem and human well-beings also. That's why, and this the present decades, United Nations announced as the ecosystem restoration. So that's why we need to pay more attention on the ecosystem. What are the factors for such kind of the climate change? The first one is for population explosion, and there is a direct relationship between the environment people, and the environment affects by the people in terms of climate, water availability, shelter, and for the soil for plant growth. And the people affects the environment in various aspects like fossil fuel burning and urbanization, deforestation and pollution, and so many things. So that's why the recent research was held in the last year, and they have the current scenario of the current era is called Age of Man or Anthropocene era. So due to this Anthropocene era, we faced a lot of challenges in this 21st century. For example, population growth, extreme poverty, climate change, overexploitation of natural resources, destruction of vegetation, and intensive agricultural practices, overuse of marginal lands, imbalance of fertilization, utilization, deterioration of soil health, and depleting aquifers. So many problems when we have to face. And another thing, and recent report published from the World Economic Forum, and they have to release the global risks every year, and the green indicates the environmental risks, and the red social one, and the green the blue one is yellow one is for the geopolitical issues. And for the past 5 years, the environmental related issues one is the top 5, including extreme weather events and other consequences like biodiversity loss, human health diseases, natural disasters, and so many things are occupied the top position, environmental related issues. And for the population explosion is one of the major culprit for the climate change issues. And at present, we have 7.2 billion of global populations. We are expecting to cross by 8.5 billion by 2030 and more than 10 billions by 2050 we are expecting. And even though for the urbanization population also, even in the Asian countries, we are probably surpassed surpassed by China by 2028 as per the recent reports. So we are both are dominating. And the similar to the population explosion, urbanization rate is also higher in our Indian countries than compared to that of other Western countries like India and China are leading for the urbanization, especially nearly 13% from the higher urbanization rate was happened. And then coming to the over exploitation of natural resources is another one of the major factor for the global climate change. And whatever the resources when we utilize, the over exploitation of resources, especially due to the population explosion, and we need to provide a very good food, water, and shelter for everyone. So that's why we need more energy, more water, and more food to provide for each and everyone. And also for the world energy consumption is mainly we are entirely dependent on the fossil fuel substances like coal, oil, and natural gases. Even though India is one of the 4th largest producer of coal, and we imported the 3rd largest coal consumer in the world. So that's why we our energy resources we mainly dependent upon the coal-fired power plants. Why I have insisted here the coal-fired power plants, because that is the major culprit for the global warming, the major sources, because due to the coal-fired power plants rather than the transportation and deforestation is used. And the global energy mix one is also dominated by this utilization of fossil fuel resources, especially coal, natural gas, and oil. And also another important thing, and in like our developing countries like India, we have spent a lot of our economic resources for the import of. Hello, is it audible?
You're audible, sir.
Yeah, okay. And also the green cover, the deforestation is another major factor. because carbon tree canopy is the major carbon sequestration or carbon sink capability. Even though soil and wetlands and even for ocean, they have some capability of carbon sequestration potential, but tree canopy or forest even cover is the major carbon sequestration capability. And most of our mining approvals nowadays, it's approval in the vicinity of the national parks or sanctuaries, and we have to utilize it not only for coal and for other mining, iron ore mining and several other mining, and for major thermal power projects. We have to clearance, environmental clearance provided by the government of India in the midst, in the vicinity of the national forest and other things. Still, we have to improve some of the forest cover in Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Kerala. In the last report of Forest State of India Forest Report 2019, and that's why worldwide the countries, they have to pay more attention on coal phase out by 2060. That is the COP meeting, Conference of Parties meeting goal, United Nations goal, UNFCCC, United Nations Forum to Combat Climate Change. So that's why we have taken several steps. Now India, we are planning to reduce the carbon import, because most of our amount resources, foreign reserves, we have to utilize it, spend for that kind of import of coal resources and fossil fuel, other fossil fuel resources. And for that mining industries, nearly 2,500 and 250,000 hectares it's affected per year. So that's why we have to pay more attention about the deforestation. And this is some of the reports. India-sized tropical forest has been already disappeared in that throughout the world, even though before the Amazon forest dieback and the Australian bushfire and before that thing. So that's why our former advisor for Prime Minister, Dr. R. Chidambaram, and he said energy and climate change, these are interlinked, and these are all the key issues for our nations. So before we go to the overexploitation of the natural resources, first we would like to know that the ecological footprint, the terminology, how we have to measure the ecological footprint, how fast we consume our natural resources and generate the waste, when compared to how fast the nature can absorb our waste and generate a new resources. எவ்வளவுக்கு எவ்வளவு நம்ம ரிசோர்ஸஸ் we have to utilize பண்ணிட்டு அதை வேஸ்டா நம்ம இது பண்றோமோ, அந்த வேஸ்ட் நேச்சர் உள்வாங்கி கொண்டு மறு உருவாக்கம் செய்யறதுக்கு எவ்வளவு டைம் எடுத்துக்குதோ, தட் இஸ் கால்ட் தி ecological footprint. And based on that ecological footprint, we have to calculate Earth overshoot day. Earth overshoot day, it's nothing but the day when we have to utilize more resources of the planet, and that can regenerate the whole year. That is the Earth overshoot day. And this is calculated by the simple formula: world biocapacity divided by world ecological footprint times 365 days per year. Based on this Earth overshoot day, it was observed in 1970 by December 29, nearly 3 to 5 decades before. But last year it was July 29 in 2019. In 2020 it was in August 22nd. So whatever the resources available for the whole year from January 1 to December 31st, we utilized the resources, all the resources before the end of the year. So for example, at present is July 16th, we utilize it for next year's resources, 2022 resources. So that's why the things, if the scenario is persist, the Earth overshoot day is going to be June, it becomes earlier. So that's why we need to pay more attention on the carbon mitigation or carbon emission strategies to reduce it 30%. And even if we followed or reduced 30% of the carbon emission, the Earth overshoot day will become September 16th by 2030. Why it is a little bit better for 2020 is due to the COVID situation, for the pandemic years, for the past 1 year, because of lot of industries are shut down, transportation, less transportation, and so that's why the carbon emission rate was declined, and that's why the Earth is not enough at present. That's the conflict of interest between different countries, especially developing and developed nations so far. You people are heard about when Kyoto Protocol to Paris Agreement and for the last meeting was held in Morocco and all the things. Now the next COP meeting, Conference of Parties means on climate change will be held on November 8th in England, UK, Glasgow, England. So for the Paris Agreement deal, when we have to adopt the Paris climate deal or not, and even from the Kyoto Protocol to so many meetings, the main conflict of interest is between the developing and developed nations of funding resources and other things. So that's why the scenario is even though the resources utilized for developing developed nations like US, Australia, and other countries, and they blamed us. That's why even in Kyoto Protocol, Australia and US, they didn't sign the pact. Australia and also the developed countries, they blamed us like India and China because of the population explosion. You people are more populated countries, and you have to utilize more resources and you have emitted more carbon. But in real scenario, the developed countries are utilizing more resources. And whatever the global climate change, before the Paris Conference of Parties meets, the COP25 in Paris, and Barack Obama is the first US president to visit Alaska. None of the US president visit Alaska, and to create an awareness of climate change issues globally in 2015 before convening the climate change meeting on Paris. Similarly, the Pope, France Vatican Pope, also they have to raise his voice in climate change issues. And you people are heard about that girl, Greta Thunberg, and she raised her voice even in United Nations Forum, and especially on the climate change issues. And to honor her contribution and her affection on the climate change issues and other environmental aspects, and the recently discovered snail species from the Brunei, and the named for her name is Cascadotropis Greta Thunberg, and he is the famous actor Leonardo DiCaprio, Oscar-winning actor, and he is an ambassador for climate change issues throughout the global thing. And the global climate change issues or global warming is nothing new, and we have to pay more attention, not only for the scientists, even in the business or magazines and other things. We have to talk about the global warming scenarios for all the things, how that will affect the importance of our nature. Here I would like to emphasize some of the examples. What are the jewels of our nature and civilization? Great Barrier Reef, it is one of the richest coral reef biodiversity in Australia, and that is going to be affected due to the ocean acidification, like coral bleaching. Similarly, Venice Canal movies, it's going to be dried. And in Kilimanjaro, it is the glaciers in Tanzania, and that's also affected. Machu Picchu, it's in Peru. Robo or Indian movie or song in that place, and that's also affected for climate change issues. And similarly, Mount Fuji, it's also affected. And what is that? There is a linear relationship. We already seen that population explosion is one of the major factors for global climate change issues. Yes, it's true, because there is a linear relationship between the population explosion, 7.2 billion, and the concentration of CO2 is also cross 400 ppm. In earlier days or pre-industrial level, it was 280 ppm, and first time May 9, 2013, it was reached 400 ppm, and recently, and it's 1 month old data, but recently it across the 420 or 418 ppm, and that's the laboratory located in Mauna Loa Laboratory. It's located in Hawaii, USA, and they have to record the global CO2 concentrations on the every day, hourly based, and based on that we have to calculated and all those things. And this is the pre-industrial level is 280 ppm, and at present is more than 418 ppm. It's almost nearly 420 ppm. It's when compared to that of the pre-industrial level, it's nearly 50%, 48% of CO2 concentration has been increased nowadays. and this is the daily average and the global monthly average recorded by the NOAA in Hawaii things. And the recent thing, 50% higher than the free industrial level, nearly 50%. And we are expecting the global annual average concentration could be 417 ppm. And before it was less than 400 ppm. And what are the ultimate take-home message is, the richest countries, 10% of the richest countries, they utilized or they emitted with more than 50% of the CO2 emission. Remaining 50% of the developing nations, they emitted only even the 10% of the carbon emission. So the ultimate rich nations, they utilized more resources and they are the responsible for the highest emission. And the remaining 50% of the developing countries, they utilized a very less amount of the resources and emitted only for 10% of the emissions. But the developed nations, they don't accept it. That's why the conflict of interest is going on between the developed and developing countries. Even though the US was signed the Pact of Paris climate deal, later for the Trump's administrations, they have to withdraw the Paris climate deal, and now after Biden has taken administration, now they have to rejoin that, or they have to bind with the Paris climate deal, which has reduced more than 45% of the global carbon emission by the stipulated time period according to the INDC, and we have seen later. And due to the COVID, as I have already mentioned, even the Earth overshoot day, they have to reduce the day from July to August 22nd in last year because of, due to the pandemic period, nearly Spain, nearly 15 to 16% carbon emission is reduced. In India, nearly 12% of the carbon emission reduced. Even China also 1.4%. So most of the countries, when they have to reduce the global climate change, and the carbon emission nowadays, when we have to mainly pay more attention in earlier days about only for our transportation, roadways transportation, but nowadays we have separate policies to cut down the carbon emissions, even from the shipping, on civil aviation, railways. The different transportation sectors, they have a different policies to cut down the emission. And even this is one of the cartoon published in Deccan Chronicle, and the world richest carbon emission aircraft is Air Force One. That is the official aircraft of US President. And that's the richest carbon dioxide emission aircraft. And such kind of these particulate matter, air pollutant, CO2 and other transportation and other things, we have due to a lot of health issues. And I'm not go to in depth about those things, even though for particulate matter 2.5 and 2.10, it's a very minute particulate matter that will affect even from the different hierarchical levels, even from the pregnancy to the children, adults and elderly, and various issues, and especially for the cardiovascular and cancer. Recently, the WHO in 2015, WHO was announced the particulate matter as a carcinogenic agent rather than the other different chemicals. So that's why 7 million deaths every year occur due to the air pollution impact. And this is not for the pandemic pandemic period photograph. Even before the 2-3 years before, the Delhi was faced such kind of the air pollution problem during the winter season, and the smog or haze was occurred, and most 2 billion children were affected for every year according to the United Nations record. And not only for the human health and various aspects of human health, there is a direct link between the air pollution or climate change issues, even for the diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and for antibiotic resistance. Warming situation when they will induce the development of antibiotic resistance. So many things are happened directly related with the health issues, and this is so government also taken several measures, odd even car plan, and that car plan was evenly implemented some of the developed countries like Milan and Italy and other countries. And in addition to that, they have to implement for the BS4 policies to reduce the carbon emission, and in terms of to improve the engine efficiency, and banned 15-year-old vehicle, and Supreme Court banned the registration of diesel utilization SUV vehicles, and they have to implement the environmental tax when the heavy trucks enters into the Delhi. So that's why globally we have to pay more attention on decarbonize the transportation sector. That is one of the main things, and the ultimate goal is net zero by 2050. We need to maintain or cut down or limit the temperature rise by 1.5 degrees Celsius. That is the goal above the pre-industrial level. But the scenario is already we crossed the 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's the UN target goal. So that's why we have to decarbonize the transport sector, phase out the combustion engine vehicles by 2050. 17 countries, they have announced 100% to promote the electric vehicle policy. That's the recent report by the Global Electric Vehicle Outlook. And the World Energy Transition Outlook report also says that a declined 85% and 100% respectively for oil and coal production. That's why we need to maintain the temperature rise by 1.5 degrees Celsius. So that's why 49% of EV reaching for the total transportation by 2050. And another one thing is for the implementation of the hydrogen fuel, and we will see later that one. And what are the extreme climatic events that happened nowadays? And the earth is heating up at present. Not only earth, even for oceans also, it's heating up 0.7 degrees Celsius when compared to that of the previous years. And that is called the El Nino impact. El Nino impact means it's a heat waves, and such kind of the climate change, whether it is heat wave or cold wave, and that was ultimately affected by the human being and other living organisms. Even though not only in India or not only in Asian countries, it's throughout the world at different continents, like Arctic, Northwestern Europe, even for Mediterranean area, Europe's region, mountainous areas, and all the places. And these are all the significant climate anomalies. Even in 2020, last 1 year, what are even the melting of ice glaciers and the extreme climatic event, temperatures, heat wave, cold wave, cyclones, and so many things was identified. And this is the monthly wise major climate anomalies was recorded by the NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration in USA, and that was recorded every month. And this is the Asia had a 9th warmest, even in the March. It started the warmest year. Most of the continent, African continent, even South America, Antarctic sea ice, melting of ice glaciers was 10% more. That one. We see this melting of ice glaciers was more in 2020, and these are all the melting of ice glaciers in the pictures. And this similarly record break temperature rise in 2020. But such kind of the practice is called El Nino impact. El Nino means it's nothing but any kind of temperature changes in the surface of the Pacific Ocean, that is called El Nino, whether it is the heat wave or cold wave, depending upon the wind direction. And such kind of the heat wave and cold wave when the evenly El Nino and La Nino when occurred, that is called ENSO, El Nino Southern Oscillation. These are all the three terms, important climatic terminologies or the meteorological terminologies: El Nino, La Nina, ENSO. And the El Nino is heat wave related to, and the La Nina is related to cold wave. The extreme cold wave is also affected our resources, and extreme heat wave is also affected our resources. This is the recent report, even though we faced the earlier summer in this year. For example, it crossed 40 degrees Celsius in Odisha, Bhubaneswar, Angul, and in February, and the maximum temperature 5 to 7 degrees Celsius above normal in most of the Indian states in Odisha, Chhattisgarh, and Jharkhand region. And that's why that will happen till last May. And due to such kind of the event and melting of ice glaciers and the recent issues in for Uttarakhand region, and the Chamoli village, Nanda Devi landscape breakdown, and the Dauli Ganga river, melting of that kind of ice glaciers in Dauli Ganga river, it is washed out for that on hydroelectric facility of hydroelectric power projects in that Nanda Devi river, Dauli Ganga river basins, and so many worst affected events in that 2019 and 20 in developing nations. And similarly, the sea level increase due to the melting of ice glacier is 3.2 millimeter per year. Especially if the scenario is continued and Mumbai and Calcutta is going to be submerged in future. That's the forecast. And I have already mentioned that one for the El Nino pattern. And for that El Nino pattern, even things. Hello, is it audible, sir? Hello.
Sir, you're audible, sir.
Okay.
Parimla Bhaskar, ma'am, kindly mute your audio, please.
Yeah. Okay. And the El Nino impact or El Nino heat wave was occurred since 2015. Still, for the past 4 years, 5 years, consequent El Nino event was happened. And this is one of the example for the last 2020 last year. See, the red one is for the extreme climatic event. Most of the continent when they faced for extreme climatic events. That's why the World Meteorological Organizations, when they recently published one report, is the State of Global Climate Reports. The average temperature was increases about 1.2 degrees Celsius. 2020 is one of the three warmest years in the past 5 years. And similarly for La Nina event also recorded that one. And since 2015, and as I have already mentioned, for the past 5 years, we have faced the El Nino pattern of climate events. And this is the 2011 to 20 was the warmest decade on the things. 4114 ppm 2021, it exceeds, now it is 418. And strong marine heat waves also, 45% strong marine heat waves also we are faced in that last year. And based on that, we have to face the Arctic sea ice extent minimum in such 3.74 million square kilometers. So similarly, lot of more CO2 emission, it's related with the more pollen emissions. That's why the Climate Central was reported. And such kind of the pollen emissions that will create a lot of health issues and other things in USA, because of they have to shifting of the things, whatever the summer, shifting of earlier spring season was started before summer. That's why more pollen emission was emitted in the US. And even such kind of the earlier summer or earlier spring, shifting of seasons, and that affected with a lot of things. This is one of the examples recently published from the Down to Earth magazine. Early flowering or early phenology that will affect in Kashmir region. Galtur, it is one of the herbal flowering herb, and it's bloomed February in terms of instead of March this year every year. And similarly, almond and peach trees, it's also changes the color and changes in the flowering phenology in Jammu and Kashmir. It's a little bit 15 to 20 days forward. A life cycle of these flowers has moved when compared to the general trend, because of due to the maximum temperature it was recorded in that particular region in 17.1 degrees Celsius. Similarly for extreme snowfall, and recorded in 2020, last year 2021, even since 2005, recorded cold waves. And the ultimate take-home message is the seasons are shifting. Extend the summer, and the remaining seasons are shrinked, fall, winter, and spring season. This is the one of the recent report published by the Down to Earth, and also for the several research report in PNS. The summer duration increased from 95 from 78 days. It's increased summer from 78 days to 95, but the remaining days are decreased 6 to 73, and spring 124 to 125, autumn 87 to 82. And one of the another best example is early flowering of rhododendron trees. This is one of the example. So if we are not able to cut down the temperature below 1.5 degrees Celsius or 2 degrees Celsius, we have faced a lot of consequences. Significant Amazon dieback, sea level rise. Already we have crossed the 0.1 degree Celsius. We have faced a lot of consequences at present. But still, if we are not cut up to the 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius, we are facing several consequences problem. Already Amazon dieback, already it was happened, and it's mass extinction. It's going on. 6th mass extinction is going on now at present, and extreme increase of precipitation, unprecedented heat waves, so many things. And for the whether it is El Nino or La Nina pattern, cold wave or heat wave, ultimately we affected by the human being and other living organisms. That is the dilemma of the Anthropocene era. And I am not go to in depth about those things. What are the risks, even if 0.5 degrees Celsius of temperature increase when compared to the 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius? I would like to highlight only for the biodiversity issues. Nearly 6% of insect, 6%, 8% of plant, and 4% of vertebrates will be affected. It's almost nearly double. It's 18%, triple times insects affected, double time for plant, and two times for vertebrates will be affected in case if the temperature increased another 0.5 degrees Celsius. Similarly, for other things, sea level rise, ocean acidification, coral bleaching, and human things we are affecting. And the same thing, 30% of coral reefs was lost. We are losing 30% of the coral reef, 50% of global fisheries, even for the seawater rise and other things. And a number of extreme events was also recorded. And there's a lot of storm event and wildfire, hurricane, and other scenarios was happened in that past 1 decade. These are all some of the pictorial representation. Extreme cold wave in Poland, and this is the Jammu and Kashmir extreme cold weather event. But now the last year it's 17 degrees Celsius, something like that. This year is a freezing of Dal Lake in things in this Kashmir Valley, freezing things, and the cold wave also. We have to affected more things in Andhra Pradesh and Bihar and Delhi, Jammu Kashmir. Lot of death events was occurred. Similarly, for extreme rainfall pattern, unprecedented rainfall pattern. Because the report, the best example is 2015 rainfall pattern and 2019 or 20 February, and that was happened in Ooty, and nearly 800 mm of rainfall even a single day. And the same thing for 2,300 mm of rainfall during the first week, and 1,000 mm of rainfall in a single day in Chennai on December 2015, and that was happened. Similarly, so many typhoons and snowstorms was happened in Japan, Cuba, and continuous El Nino hurricanes was happened in Maria and Hermine, and other consequent hurricane events was happened in UK and US. And even though for the Middle East countries like Indonesia and Gulf countries, extreme rainfall was happened even in the summer season, and this is for extreme rainfall pattern in UK, and also for several human health issues, cardiovascular, dengue or malaria, chikungunya, respiratory allergies, and leptospirosis, malnutrition, forced migrations or civil. And the Syrian war is one of the best example due to the water scarcity and the drought, and a lot of migrations or civil wars is happened. And if you need more details, you have to go through the Climate Justice, one of the research journal. Lot of articles are published related to the things, and the climate politics, international climate politics due to the different countries. If you need more details regarding the migration and conflict of interest between the policies of climate change issues, and you have to go through that one. And as I already mentioned, these things, it is more vulnerable when comparing developing countries when compared to developed nations. and the global swarming. And this is the recent event was happened in the last year. And mass attack of locust, ஒட்டுமொத்தமா வெட்டுக்கிளிகள் படையெடுத்து வந்து அட்டாக் பண்றதுங்கிறத we have faced in Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Punjab and some other north countries, and even some Tamil Nadu கூட கிருஷ்ணகிரி இங்கெல்லாம் சொன்னாங்க இதுங்கிறது. The ultimate reason of that thing is for climate change, because that particular climate one is ideal for breeding ground in due to the sand temperature and other things for that locust. So that's why even that locust when this mass transport from the African region, Sudan irundhu inge pathina it's Middle East countries valiya Oman, Iran and madri countries valiya Pakistan moolama they have to landed on in Indian scenario. So that's why the locust situation, and it was affected in most of the Rajasthan and India, and it is for ideal rainfall pattern and other climatic one is ideal for to allow the egg laying things, because some of the sandy soils in Rajasthan, that is a conducive environment for egg laying things. And Madhya Pradesh and Rajasthan, it was affected severely by that mass locust attack or global swarming, or for locust plague. They have to set in different terminologies. Some are breeding areas, especially in the Rajasthan areas. So, yes, I have already mentioned species extinction, biodiversity things due to wildfires. It was happened nowadays for extreme temperature or El Nino heat waves. There is a lot of forest fire event occurred even in Himachal Pradesh, also Uttarakhand region. These are all in mountainous countries, and even though for ice fall, and they have to face the wildfire events. This is the more wildfire event was occurred in Odisha and Rajasthan, and most of the wildfire in last few months in the early summer in Odisha, Madhya Pradesh and Andhra Pradesh. Amazon forest dieback. You people heard about this is the lungs of our the global lungs of our world, and that was also affected. It is one of the richest rainforest, tropical rainforest in the world, and the richest biodiversity resources in the entire world, global things. There is the lungs of our global environment that was affected by the fire. And similarly, the Australian bushfire was held in the last year 2020, and the intensity was more when compared to that of the Amazon dieback in 2019. Because of it was affected in 10 million hectare, because the intensity of fire things is 12 meters when compared to that of the Amazon 2.2 meter. So that's why a lot of the koala bear and other bears also is affected in Australian things. If you need more details about the wildfire, please go to the State of the World Plant report in 2017 or recent reports. And what are the main threats? Even though when compared to that of the habitat loss or habitat degradation and overexploitation, climate change is only 7.1%, but the impact one is more rather than the habitat loss or other things. Even though if a very small or minute climate change that will affect more in the biodiversity resources, and because see here we affected only 32%, but for the plants and animal diversity that will affect double the 2 times higher than us, 62% that will affect. That's why we need to pay more attention on the biodiversity resources. And this is the threatened species for the IUCN. You people heard about those things. This very basic red data book was maintained by IUCN, International Union of Conservation of Nature and Natural Resources. And the threatened species will be increased when compared to that of the assessed species day by day. Similarly, for threatened of the fisheries or ocean diversity is also increased, not only for ocean, even for all the species, different hierarchical insects, birds, reptiles, mammals. The threats will be increased with increasing year by year. And 1/4 of the entire things was going to be dried by the even the temperature is 2 degrees Celsius. And also a lot of habitat things, responses when the changes, shifting habitat. They have to change the habitat shifting, and sometimes they are not possible. That's why, because of due to the melting of ice glaciers, polar bear was mostly affected, because they are not possible for shifting the habitat. The only habitat is Arctic or Antarctic region, polar bear. So that was affected more because of due to the melting of ice glaciers. Predators decline as prey decline, shifting migratory pattern. இப்போ சைபீரியன் கிரேன் இதெல்லாம் வருது அப்படின்னு நம்ம சொல்றோம். லாட் ஆஃப் இது வேடந்தாங்களுக்கு there is shifting the migration pattern also. Ecosystem changes, adaptation. So many changes was happened. So that's why due to the Anthropocene era, human being is one of the triggering for the 6th mass extinction. 2 in 5 plants are already threatened with the extinction. And the recent one, coral reefs, the coral diversity is a drastic decline when compared to that of the past 2 decades. And also for amphibians and other mammals also, so there is a slight, and cycads going extinction risk was more. Nearly 21% of the global plant species are threatened with the extinction, according to the red list category, and including chocolate and mango, Indian mango tree species. Also, they have affected. And the coffee could be extinct by 2080. Most of the coffee bean belt areas is affected by different diseases like coffee leaf rust fungi, coffee berry borer, due to the outbreak of vector-borne diseases in that coffee plant, Coffea arabica, exclusively in Mexico, Nicaragua, and Tanzanian Arabican region. And that will also decline by 2020, 2050, 2060, respectively, in these areas or these countries. And ultimately, it could be extinct by 2080, the coffee things. And in addition to that, for the neonicotinoid pesticides that will affect for the bee population. And why I have insisted here for that one is because the honeybee is one of the best pollinator for the enrichment of our biodiversity, and that bees and butterflies also going to be 75% when they declined due to that one. And for climate change talk, you see that one, any one of the climate change talk, and you have seen that kind of the picture. And the ultimate thing is, and one of the wildlife traveler, Jack Unger, and he traveled across the polar region, and he never looked any kind of polar bear his entire travel. So he wrote a book like Never Look a Polar Bear in the Eye, and he raised several international attentions, and that's why the year 2010 was announced the International Year of Biodiversity, and 2010 to 2020 it was announced as the International Decade of Biodiversity. So a lot of organizations, UN organizations, including IUCN and other organizations, they have to take several measures to protect such kind of the polar bear. And the climate change that was affected for the global seed vault or Svalbard seed vault in that permafrost region, Norway, due to melting of ice glaciers in last year, 2020. This is the global seed vault, and you people are botanists, you knew very well about them. It's a Svalbard global seed vault. It was located in the permafrost region of the Norway. In that particular region, see the melting of ice glaciers, and luckily none of the seed storage was not affected because it is a lot of several protection mechanisms is there. Similarly, the penguin population is also declined. When increasing the temperature, it's going to be decline the population, and the extinction rate will be more when compared to that of the pre-industrial level. And the past since 1900, we have to extinct 477 species, and more in amphibians, fishes, and birds and mammals. And also the extinction rate also 14 times higher in mammal, 13 times higher in birds, and 8 times higher in all other vertebrates. And coming to the marine environment, how the climate change affects the marine environment because of warmer, less oxygen, and more acidification. And the CO2 is converted into carbonic acid, and there's like acidification will affect into the bleaching and other things that will see the carbonic acids. It corrodes the shellfish and other corals. So the consequent coral bleaching event was happened in the Great Barrier Reef. So that's why it was completely affected. in Australian Great Barrier Reef. See the coral, it's a drastic decline of the entire global coral reef diversity. Even 60% bleached in Maldives also. And this is the most important thing. First, the Australian government announced such kind of the species. It's a bramble K. melomis. It's called Melomis rubicola. That species going to be or almost extinct. It's entirely exclusively located in the Great Barrier Reef area in Australia. And similarly, the population of turtle that will affect it, because for the warming temperature, the more laying eggs is possible for more offsprings on female rather than the male. So the future population is going to be declined because of more female population rather than the male population due to the warming of that particular sand temperature. Similarly, the mass offshore of whales, you people get a that kind of the things is due to the climate change. And water and food security, as I have already mentioned, the Venice Canal is going to be dry, and due to the water scarcity and food scarcity in the Syria, the continuous civil war was happened, and even though for fluorosis and other reasons also there. And this is water stressed scenario in India. It's day zero. You people heard about in Cape Town, South Africa, there was announced day zero. They have to, even ration system was implemented for the drinking and other purposes for water. Even the scenario is continuous. The day zero will happen in India, Bangalore city. And that's the one of the report was available, because we utilized more amount of water in agricultural resources rather than the industrial resources. So that's why nowadays for the agricultural universities or agricultural scientists, they paid more attention on the climate smart agriculture and how we have to save our water resources instead of 120 days, and how we have used to harvest the early harvesting varieties in 90 days instead of 125 or 145 days rice varieties. And similar to other crops also, and drought tolerant varieties, heat tolerant varieties, pesticide resistant varieties like that. And then coming to the human health, and climate change issues is directly related to that of the dengue fever, and for other MERS virus, COVID, and Ebola outbreak, and Zika virus. Recently, it's almost Zika illness is transmitted from the Middle East countries or Brazil. It's a microcephaly. Infant. It's mostly affected with the pregnant woman. Microcephaly. Head size it's reduced, and when compared to the other normal bodies, it's traveling throughout the countries. Brazil, Asian countries. Recently, Kerala, they have identified as on day 26 cases was identified in Kerala. In last 2 years before the COVID pandemic, Krishnagiri, they have 2 cases was identified in Krishnagiri district in Tamil Nadu, Zika virus. But that's also, it's related with the climate change issues. Zika virus, they have to prove it. But for the pollen grains, in recent report published by Lancet in 2021, the COVID virus is also transmitted through the pollen grains. And that report was published in Lancet. It is a very famous medical journal, Lancet journal. And what are the modern intensive agricultural practices? And it's, I'm not going in depth about those things. And what are the climate mitigation practices we used? And another 5 to 10 minutes, I would like to finish my talk. And this is the climate change numbers according to the COP21. We have to target is 1.5 degree Celsius, and maximum target is 2 degrees Celsius. We need to cut down the temperature. But each and every country, they have to submit one pledge that is called INDC, Intended Nationally Determined Contribution, to in the Paris Climate Deal, Paris Agreement. Each and every country, they have to submit one pledge or one INDC, that is called Intended Nationally Determined Contribution. And India also India commits reducing the emission 33 to 35% below 2005 levels by 2020. When compared to 2005 levels, எவ்வளவு கார்பன் எமிஷன் நம்ம பண்ணியிருக்கிறோமோ அதிலிருந்து 33 to 35% நம்ம குறைச்சிடுவோம். எப்போ அப்படின்னா 2030க்குள்ள. அது பாரிஸ் அக்ரிமெண்ட் 2015ல வந்தது. அதிலிருந்து இப்போ போஸ்ட் பாரிஸ் கிளைமேட் டீல் எந்தெந்த கண்ட்ரி அடாப்ட் பண்றாங்களா இல்லையா அப்படிங்கிறது மானிட்டரிங் திங்ஸ் வந்து இஸ் கோயிங் ஆன். 2018ல ஃபர்ஸ்ட் மானிட்டரிங் பீரியட் முடிஞ்சது. நெக்ஸ்ட் மானிட்டரிங் பீரியட் வில் கமிங் சூன். ஸோ இப்போ லேட்டரா யூஎஸ் வந்து இது பண்ணல ட்ரம்ப் அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேஷன்ல. இப்போ பிடன் அட்மினிஸ்ட்ரேஷன்ல தே ஆர் ஆல்சோ அக்ரீட் வித் ஜாயின் இந்த பாரிஸ் கிளைமேட் டீல் அப்படிங்கிறது. அதே மாதிரி கோல் ஃபேஸ் அவுட் கம்ப்ளீட்டா நம்ம டிராஸ்டிக் வரணும். 2060 கம்ப்ளீட் கோல் ஃபேஸ் அவுட் அண்ட் டு இம்ப்ரூவ் தி எலக்ட்ரிக் வெஹிக்கிள்ஸ் அப்படிங்கிறத நம்ம முன்னாடியே டீகார்பனைசேஷன் ஆஃப் தி டிரான்ஸ்போர்டேஷன் செக்டர்ஸ் பார்த்தோம். அண்ட் ஆல்சோ டு மூவ் ஃபார் தி ரினியூவபிள் எனர்ஜி ரிசோர்சஸ் rather than the fossil fuel or non-renewable. That's why imported for 8,500 crores worth lithium-ion batteries India, and they have to adopted FAME policy in 2015, faster adoption and manufacturing electric vehicles. And recently another one scheme was introduced, and also 18,000 crore they have allocated for EV battery and promoting investment manufacturing by production linked incentive scheme by the government of India. And the National Electric Mobility Mission Plan was also implemented, and 6 to 7 million electric vehicles on Indian roads will be implemented by 2030. Electric vehicles, they have to increase the charge stations nowadays. Then another one part of scenario for the future fuel is hydrogen. So India is also joined with the green hydrogen catapult initiatives very soon, and also to cut down the cost of green hydrogen less than $2 per kg. So that's why national hydrogen strategies already in several countries was implemented, more than 16-17 countries. And similar to India, each and every country, when they have to cut down the emissions, like even 2025 target is 28% when compared with the 2005 level. And the levels, even India and China, they also compare with 33 to 35%. China 60 to 65% when compared to 2005 levels. When European Union, and they have to compare 40% to cut down carbon emission from 1990 levels. So the base levels, and it's different from each countries. And that's why the India, they have to promote the renewable energy, especially on the solar power energy. And in addition to the wind energy, hydroelectric, geothermal, and ocean tidal energy, we have already set up tidal energies things in Vaishak port. And hydroelectric we have to improve, and the solar is we are the pioneering one. And earlier it's 100 gigawatt is our target, but now it's increased by 175 gigawatt by 2022. And they have to also contribute to the International Solar Alliance, in associated with the German and other country IRIDA, and for the Solar Energy Corporation of India, with the association of MNRE, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. So they have also introduced green bonds for the new raise the climate funds. The ultimate thing is we have to reduce the emissions, whatever the carbon emission, we have to drastically reduce it. That is called net zero by 2050. That's the ultimate goal for all. And already we missed the bus by 1.5 degree Celsius. So we are going to the 2 degree Celsius path. So that's why we need to adopt several measures. And India also already they have to implement the National Action Plan on Climate Change. Comes under 8 different missions: solar mission, and enhanced energy efficiency, refrigerator and other electronic LED bulbs changes, and schemes. Jwala ஒரு ஸ்கீம் கொண்டு வந்திருக்காங்க. அந்த இதில் எல்இடி பல்ப்ஸ் இம்ப்ளிமெண்ட் பண்ணுறது. ஆந்திர பிரதேசத்தில் கம்ப்ளீட்டாக தே ஹேவ் டு எவ்ரி ஹவுஸ்க்கு தே ஹேவ் டு கிவ் தட் எல்இடி பல்ப் டு ரிமூவ் தி ஓல்டு நம்ம பழைய இதில் எல்இடி ரிமூவ் பண்ணுறதுனால வி ஹேவ் டு சேவ் மோர் எனர்ஜி. Sustainable habitat or mission, water mission, we have to implement drip irrigation and so many water missions, interlinking of river water and other things. Sustainable Himalayan ecosystem. We have to pay more attention about exclusively for Himalayan ecosystem, because even a very small, minute climate change impact that will reflect on the mountainous ecosystem. This is one of the biodiversity hotspots in our country as well as in global hotspot. And also mission for Green India, increase our forest cover by 33% from 24.3%. Mission for sustainable agriculture, organic farming practices, so many organic farming practices we have followed. National mission on strategic knowledge, climate change knowledge, strategic knowledge for implementation. Recently, the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, announced 17 sustainable development goals. Initially, 7 millennium development goals was implemented, and 7 goals was that goal was completed by 2015. Since 2015, UNDP announced 17 sustainable development goals to meet out our environment for our well-being and good environment. So most of the goals related with are pertaining to the environment things, like good health and well-being, no hunger, climate action, life below water, life on land, good health and well-being, so many things, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy. Most of the goals are directly related to the SDGs. And such kind of the practices when they exclusively one goal when this for climate action, what kind of the sustainable practices when we followed, and we will ultimately achieve for our things to protect our environment. So that's why I would like to finish my talk, and these are all some of our publications in environmental sustainability practices and glimpses on animal biodiversity and plant biodiversity perspectives. And that book was released in our university by our former president, Dr. Abdul Kalam ji, and our former vice chancellor, Professor Dr. Muthuchelian sir, has given some assignments pertaining to the biodiversity. And he wrote a book in Uyir Virimam in Tamil, and that book was also awarded in a Best Book Award in the Government of Tamil Nadu in 2014. And that book release function was held in Raj Bhavan in 2013, and we are also participated at that one. So I would like to finish my views up to this, and if you have any clarifications or doubts, and I thought I would like to fulfill to you to double my best. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, sir. The topic is now open for discussion. Participants can either ask the questions directly or you can post the queries in the chat box. So there is a question.
Yes.
Sir?
Yes, madam.
So the question is, sir, does carbon emissions increase EL Nino and decrease La Nino effects, sir?
No, it's both. Because the carbon emission, it's very good question. The heat wave or carbon emission is not only related with the heat wave, and it is also related with the cold wave also. That's why I have mentioned it's an early spring. The climate when the seasons of the climate or seasons of the seasons are completely changed, are shifting. Extend the summer, and the remaining seasons are shrinking. So ultimately, that will affect both the El Nino and the La Nina, and extreme heat waves and extreme cold waves. So it affects in both ways, not for directly pertaining to the heat waves or El Nino, or not directly pertaining to the La Nina. For both the heat and cold waves, the carbon emission plays a dominant role.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, madam. Yes. What are the other questions? You can ask. Even in Tamil, it's okay. I don't know about the participants only for PG students or even faculty, but I don't know the diversity of the participants. But வெவ்வேறு டிசிப்ளின்ஸ்ல இருந்து வந்திருந்தாலும் உங்களுக்கு பிடிச்ச டவுட்ஸோ இல்லை உங்களுக்கு இது கிளாரிஃபிகேஷன்னால ப்ளீஸ் ஃபீல் ஃப்ரீ டு ஆஸ்க் அண்ட் ஐ வுட் லைக் டு கிவ் மை வியூஸ் டு மை லெவல் பெஸ்ட்.
There are no more questions, sir.
Okay, madam.
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable talk.
Thank you,
And
madam.
Gratitude is not in the words, but in the heart which expresses it. I now call upon Dr. H. Abdul Kafur, sir, Assistant Professor in Botany, Kongunadu Arts and Science College, Coimbatore, to propose the vote of thanks. Please, sir.
Yes, ma'am. A very good afternoon to everyone present here. With the most pride and honor, I am very glad to make the closing remarks and to propose vote of thanks to this vibrant gatherings. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to our most adorned President Dr. Aruchami, sir, and Dr. C.A. Vasagi, ma'am, Director and Secretary of our college, for their constant support and guidance in all the aspects. I am very happy to reciprocate my gratefulness to Dr. M. Lakshmanasamy, sir, Principal of our college, for his inevitable assistance. It's my privilege to thank Dr. S. Palsamy, sir, Dean R&D, Dr. S. R. Madan Shankar, sir, Dean Academics, Dean School of Computer Science, Dr. Nagarajan, sir, for their enthusiastic support. On behalf of our college, I extend my heartfelt gratitude to our resource person, Dr. P. Thangavel, sir, Assistant Professor, Department of Environmental Science, Periyar University, Salem, for sharing his experience and valuable knowledge on the consequences of climate change on the environment. The session was very informative and thoughtful, provoking, which helped us to realize the importance of sustainable development. My sincere thanks to Dr. K. Denimali, ma'am, Assistant Professor and Head, Department of Botany, for their persistent aid and motivation. It's my pleasure to thank and acknowledge the contribution of all the members who worked hard to make this session an informative one. Last but not least, my heartfelt thanks to Organizing Secretary and committee members for organizing the session. Once again, I thank everyone for making this session a very interactive. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A
Thank
few
you.
announcements.
Thank you.
Tomorrow, Saturday, will be the third day of the short-term course in climate change, impact on sustainable development. Dr. M. Dwarakanath, former Director, Department of Science, Technology and Environment, and Member Secretary, Puducherry Pollution Control Committee, Government of Puducherry, will be delivering his lecture on the topic Greenhouse Gases, Inventorization and Action Plan. Participants can join either in Google Meet or on your YouTube link, respectively, before 10 minutes to 10 a.m. And now all participants are requested to submit the feedback form before closing the session. Thank you all once again. Have a nice day.